How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. I know the wall's closing in, but don't you dare give up now. Hope believed in me, pull up through some bucks down. Tired till the valet pull the truck round. Push the line after we drew it, it's just us now. Would you believe me if I told you my granny told me she prayed this? Then booked the surgery just to pull me out of the basement. Right back where I started, nothing to show for a facelift. Got pushed playing Walter White and Davis, never felt so dangerous. The type of power they can't quantify. And name the best for my region, you gotta utter mine. Think of who really putting on, you never come to mind. Rapping like your Spotify, tap you rappers compromise. Yeah, no need to panic, just paint the canvas. If you can feel the static, you're too close, find your balance. Embed the revolution for they prohibition bandwidth. Blood trickle from the lead to see what's planted. I had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. I had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. Boy, that flight to Amsterdam. Well, my accountant of mine, my family found out too and didn't like it. You're not in the salon with Dale said, and I thought he was biased. Then I got a Venmo that said copy the finest. Before my foolishness settled in, recorded the whole tape before we got to Berlin. This close to giving up, but now never again. Don't overlook the work and come expecting to win. In the end, my word, never put nothing over the squad. Got it right up under their nose and try the facade. Off the cliff with broken wings, I'm aware of the odds. Enough faith for us all, I'm the one for the job. Most days, catching sun rays, baby, look like the front page. Overthinking what they might say, have it your way, yeah. The biggest threat is something they never seen. Dial it up, patch me into the screen.
What's going on, Black Power Media? This is Jackie Lukman.
And I am Baba Lukman.
And welcome to Lukman Nation, our first live stream for Black Power Media. We are so excited to be a part of this venture. So excited to have a conversation with you. And look, this is so dope. This is just really dope.
I mean, we are the most dangerous show on social media. And Black Power Media is the most dangerous media on the planet Earth. So right now,
fitting the beat.
Exactly. So so while we're starting this right now, let's go and hit the notifications and all the likes and all the nice buttons and gadgets that you have to do in order to stay connected and stay in tune with Black Power Media, not just for Lukman Nation, but for all the upcoming program that's happening. Also, too, we would love for you to be a member of Black Power Media. Let's get this thing started, and let's make this thing the hottest and the biggest thing on the planet. We can do this if all of us get together, right, Jackie?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. As my host of By Any Means Necessary and comrade Sean Blackman says, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So listen, y'all. We see you over in the chat. Hey, Ricky, Leah, Lisa, everybody coming on. Let's get into this conversation about these working class delusions that folks have about capitalism. Now, look, we understand that we are the most propagandized people on the planet.
Yep.
Americans in general, people who live in this country in general, are the most propagandized people on the planet. Our government, well, not our, this government lies to us about everything it does internationally. You will almost never see the word imperialism or neocolonialism or even hegemony.
Right.
Certainly you won't see things like full spectrum dominance in any U.S. media, State Department, nothing involving their involvement in affairs around the world. And there's plenty of that. But this government does a whole bunch of lying about what goes on in this country. And this is why in the media, you also don't see very much the word capitalism used in the sense that it should be used, in the context that it should be used, that capitalism is rapacious, it is destructive, it's exploitative, and it is not a system that exists to provide equality or justice or, none of that for people. But because we are the most propagandized people on the planet, and especially Black people, brown people, people of color, indigenous folks, anybody who is not white, male, cis, hetero, whatever, we are even more indoctrinated because you see, this capitalist system could not continue to exploit those of us on the bottom if we didn't believe that our exploitation served a greater purpose.
Well, I mean, you look at it this way. You can't act within the role of being a colonized people unless you buy into the ideology and the systems of the colonizer. So, I mean, so this is the reason why from very, 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 from the very beginning, even when we remember going to school, the first thing that you're indoctrinated with is how great this system is. Even though going to school and leaving from school, for many of us, we actually witnessed the failings of capitalism and how that was perpetuated by racism, class, and everything else. But yet, as soon as we got to school, we were supposed to stand up and put our hands over our hearts and pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which keep on fucking us. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for others, not for me.
One nation completely divided, because that's the way it was designed, under no God that has any sin.
That's right. That's right.
But the God that they pledge their allegiance to, it isn't a spiritual God, it's capitalism.
Exactly. And imperialism.
And imperialism.
Right. Exactly.
And a part of this indoctrination comes from it comes a lot from the petty bourgeoisie. The middle managers, the people who got like $5-10 over breakfast money, as our grandparents would say, and who believe that because they got a little bit of crumbs, like literally like this big of a piece of the crust off the pie, right, that they're the ones who deliver the message of the benefits of capitalism to the working class and the poor. You don't see a whole lot of like seriously wealthy people, the capitalists who actually make the decisions. Jeff Bezos is not out there telling folks how to spend their money and what to do. Right. He is spending all that money that the working class, his workers, who he is actively exploiting right now and trying to keep them from forming a union down in Bessemer, Alabama.
Right.
He is spending his money. So, I mean, he doesn't have to, get out and talk about, well, if you just work hard like I did and if you were smart like me, you can be like me one day. He doesn't have to do that, because there are people who have benefited off of his model of exploitation and capitalism and the model of exploitation and capitalism just a little bit more than the rest of us, right, who will happily deliver that message to us. Right. And we had a conversation with someone like that. When was this? Friday? When did we? A couple of days ago.
Probably Monday.
I think it was Monday. We were out and about, had to get out of the house, a little bit, run some errands, and just.
I think we went to go get me a phone.
Yes, we went to go get you a phone because
I needed a phone. Yeah.
You know what? Because he's a middle-aged guy who thinks that he can still get away with a flip phone, right. But when his wife is trying to text him, I can't. And I don't, and you know how it is. You don't want to have a conversation with people all the time. You just want to text people. If you're out, bring home some milk. But I can't do that with a flip phone because he's cheap. And so we had to go and get him a real smart phone.
One thing they don't talk about is that at least with the flip phone, I could charge the phone and have it for the next century without recharging it. But these daggone modern day phones, it's like, man, I make a call and I take a picture and then I got to charge the battery. But I digress.
That's true. And yes, we understand the contradictions of buying into this the capitalist exploitative contradictions of modern electronics. We get it. But look, when mama needs snacks, when you're out, mama needs her snacks. You come home with the snacks and there won't be any problems. But anyway, so we're out hanging out, and we go in to get the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And we had been there before, and we had a similar conversation with somebody who I thought was the same person, but he's a different person.
No.
So we're having this conversation with the manager of this phone shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know that this dude is very young, in his late 20s. And we knew that he was Persian.
Well, yeah, somewhere.
Somewhere with it, because that's what he said himself.
Well,
after,
we said we know we alluded that he might have been like Hindi Pak or something.
Right, but he was like, no,
he's Persian.
I'm Persian. It's like, all right, I'll call you what you want to be called. That's cool. I ain't got no problem with that. So I don't know how the conversation started, but this guy started talking about how people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos were very smart. And I think that we started talking about the COVID relief.
Yeah, we started with the talking about the COVID bill. We spoke about how this government, how generous they were to businesses, as opposed to the average Sally and Joe or Keisha and Aquan,
right?
So and the average working class in this country, and and so this guy, he runs one of these little franchise mobile booth stores or something like that, and so this qualifies him. At least in his mind, that he's going to school us on the global benefits of capitalism, and he's going to school us because we're there to buy from him. The benefits and the wonders of capitalism, and but this is the thing. See, one of the things that we always find out when we have these conversations with people, be they black, white, or whatever. It reminds me of the guy from Coming to America. I haven't seen the remake. I haven't seen the sequel, but we're talking about the original one, the funny one, right? And remember when what's the guy's name? The comedian Louis Anderson. Louis Anderson.
Yeah. Yep.
Now this is when we have conversations with people about capitalism, especially working class people who feel or who aspire one day to be a capitalist, and sit at the boardroom table and all this stuff. The ones that buy into all you got to do is work hard and stuff. They remind me of Louis Anderson when he was over there on the Fries.
Right.
He was telling Eddie Murphy's character and Arsenio and them, who are really rich, but that he doesn't know.
Right.
So this is what made the scene really ridiculous. I mean, not ridiculous, the scene, but I'm sure from their standpoint, this is what made him look ridiculous. Because, he's explaining that he's assuming that these two black men, are just, are poor and they, and they're immigrants. So,
Right.
And so he explains to them the benefits of just buying into the system. And he uses himself as an example. He says, look, right now, I'm washing lettuce. And then from washing lettuce, I'm going to go
over the fries.
Right. And then once then I'll be making the big bucks, So that mentality, unfortunately, Jackie, is still the mentality that is what you get when you talk to a lot of these working class people who still are buying into this capitalist system. Well, not so much the capitalist system, who is buying into the lie of meritocracy.
Right. That's what it is, because that's all this guy was saying. He's very much, aspired to be a capitalist. He's not a capitalist. He's the petty bourgeoisie. He doesn't know that. He believes that he has achieved some measure of success. He has made it, he thinks. So he is thinking that he's got advice for us poor, black, clearly poor schlubs coming into his phone store to buy, a cheap a smartphone.
I mean, and bad enough, when he was asking about the phone, because I feel like it's I should get what I need, and so I said, look, he said, well, what plan do you want? Knowing that it's his job to sell me the most expensive. So I said, well, I'll take one of those under $50 plans.
No.
So I know I have to,
No, what you said was, what's the cheapest phone you got?
I did. I said that. What's the cheapest phone you got? Because mind you now, I've been drugged there in order to get, what is considered a modern phone, where I could have easily just filled out a card and sent for what they call the Obama phone, which would have been perfectly all right with me. But I understand now that we're anyway. But that I could tell by how long his face got. He didn't want to hear me ask about.
He didn't want to
hear that. His face got very long.
But in all seriousness, though, the whole thing was really hilarious, because here this guy, we're coming into his store and it's really not his store. He is the manager of the corporation's franchise store. That right there is an important point. A lot of these folks who have this attitude don't actually own anything.
Right.
They are managers of some other capitalist stuff. And they have this attitude that they have all the answers, because literally they just have more money than they think we do. And, he might, but still, just the idea that they align themselves so, mentally and emotionally with the owner rather than the working people. I know David, he said Persian. That's what he said. I'm serious. He called himself that. We didn't call him that.
Yeah.
But I mean, the petty bourgeoisie aligns themselves with the owners, with the bosses, with the capitalists, because they want to be them. They aspire to be them. And they believe that they have been rewarded by having the few little crumbs that they have, which they feel like gives them license to tell the rest of us how to make it and what we're doing wrong as to why we haven't made it. So that was like where the conversation we had with him went. And a couple of the things he said were just, I think, we had said they were so indicative of this attitude of the petty bourgeoisie.
Right. Yep.
Like one of the things he said, which was crazy, he was, praising the capitalists, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, because they're so smart.
Well, and I want to give some context to it, because what happened is the reason how we got on this conversation, because we were talking about the responsibility of business and the fact that the government, like we said earlier, how the government was very generous to big business and the tax breaks and everything, and not just with the pandemic. We spoke about the loss of manufacturing,
right?
So we got on this, and not that we were looking for him to agree or disagree, but he injected himself in the conversation. And so he said that, he said that I feel that it's really smart that Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, who worked so hard. Now he stressed this. And so we both said, we're not minimizing the amount of Elon Musk, for example. We're not minimizing that, they wouldn't be an industry or his industry without his involvement. But Elon Musk did not build all those cars. And so what we was basically saying is that Elon Musk is Elon Musk because it's the folks that are building these things for him that is generating his wealth, that is making him who he is. No one is saying that that he doesn't matter. Right. What we're saying is he's not the only thing that matters. Right. And this is what was happening. The same thing with Bezos. So it got to where the conversation was, as we see with a lot of capitalists, is the devaluing of not only of human beings, because this guy said to us, he said, these workers, they should be they should feel glad. Right. That he doesn't have to give them a job. Oh no, he doesn't. Well, who would build a car? Because I'm sure he's not going to go out there on an assembly line or whatever. He can't put enough robots in his factory if he got rid of all of the human beings in order to make the kind of wealth that he's been making. Jeff Bezos is not coming to each house in his Amazon truck, dropping off packages and flying the plane all around the world. Right. These take people. But the thing of it is that the propaganda has been so successful in the capitalist countries, and especially here, where human beings are devalued, and what they contribute to the capitalists is devalued. One of the things that we try to explain to this young man is the fact that, young man, maybe you don't understand this, but labor is valuable.
Right.
And what is supposed to happen between the worker and the capitalist is that there is supposed to be a contract, a social contract, a contract that where the laborer who has nothing, who has only his labor to give. I won't say nothing. Who has only his labor to give. There's a value on that, and that value is based on, which is what the unions come in at. The value is based on what we negotiate this to be. You don't get to tell me how valuable my labor is, and that's what happened.
Exactly.
Right.
And so what happened? What has happened now is that the people who have told the laborers what their value is, basically because they just don't want to pay people the worth of their labor, while they steal the profits of those people's labor. That's Jeff Bezos, that's Elon Musk, that's Mark Zuckerberg. Look, those people at Facebook who are programming those algorithms that snatch our stuff and put us in Facebook jail unjustly, yes. and with a very racist algorithm. Those people are the labor behind all of the profit that these people make. So we put the people who take the profit from people's labor up on this pedestal, talking about how smart they are and how they deserve all of this wealth. But then we disparage the people who actually created the wealth. And this is what this guy was doing. Like, he was talking about, the fact that, yes, what's his face? Jeff Bezos,
JB, as we call him.
Yeah, JB. Yeah. That Jeff Bezos deserves the wealth that he has, and he's in politicians' ear, and then we had to stop him right there too. It's like, why should capitalists? Why should these massive corporate conglomerate owners? Why should they be in politicians' ears? Because they already, oh, thank you, Sharice, Bill Gates. Yeah, same with the Microsoft nerd.
Yep,
I got a beef with Bill Gates, just as an aside. I learned Microsoft when it was MS-DOS, when it was Microsoft DOS. I'm that old. Yes. And then when Windows came out, then, it was like, hey, pictures, right? So, but before MS-DOs was, Microsoft, the ubiquitous Microsoft that it is now. I know, he's a true a blue collar working class man. He's been a truck driver for 30 years, 35 years. So yeah, I still have to tell him what to. But anyway, so MS-DOS was the thing, but it wasn't like the only piece of word processing software out there, because there was also WordPerfect, and I can't remember who owned WordPerfect before Corel bought it. But now you can't buy a PC a lot of times unless you buy Microsoft. And there is a reason for that. That is Bill Gates and Microsoft and his company Microsoft monopolizing the word processing software market. And you're right, Ricky. Bill Gates is probably going to hell for not just for that, not just for destroying WordPerfect, which I love, but also for his so-called humanitarian work. That's some bullshit. We're gonna have to do a show about that.
But this is relevant to our conversation, because that's one of the things that the young man, our young capitalist friend, this is another thing that he said when we brought up about, and I think someone in the chat mentioned about the Facebook conglomerates, as I call the information cabal, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
The ones that we really need to be careful about, because I believe that these people, if they're not broken up soon, these people are really going to slap across our faces some 1984-ish type censorship. They already started to do it now. But this is the thing. So when we spoke about these conglomerates and these monopolies, these modern day monopolies, because one thing about young people, unfortunately, I know, in a society like this that worships everything youthful, one of the things that young people lack is reference. And historical reference. Unless you study it, then you won't know about it. And why do I say that? Because one thing our young friend, like many of our young friends, they think that things started today. That all of these things that exist started today. That monopolies and conglomerates started today. And so, they feel like, oh, I'm up on it because, hey, it started today. But no, these things preceded the Facebooks and the Googles. It preceded the Microsofts and the Apples. And so when we went to go instruct the young man about why we felt it was necessary that there has to be some type of intervention, preferably government intervention, to break these conglomerates up, he said, no, you can't do that because after all, they're smart for doing it. And that's taking away their rights. And I had to tell the young man, well, the antitrust laws that we once had here was put in place because of the same thing that we're seeing happening today.
Exactly. AT&T.
It stifles competition. It increases prices because there's no competition. So, so the thing of it is that, and the government seeing how detrimental that would be for the growth of the society. So under Theodore Roosevelt, they was like, no, we got to break this up. My bell.
Right.
We got to break this all up because if America is supposed to be about opportunity, well, we can't have much opportunity if everybody, if a few corporations got the whole game sold down.
Right.
So when we explained that to him, I see him started to think a little bit. Then he started saying, well, maybe I underestimated these old folks because, and then we started to think. So then he switched to the other very often used argument when it comes to why some people can't benefit in the capitalist system. And unfortunately, we've heard this time and time again. He said, and he tried to use Baltimore as his example. And he said, he said, I look at Baltimore and I see people my age. I went to high school, and he said, and when I was in high school, I worked very hard, and I had 3 jobs, and I would work, and I was making $60,000 a year when I was out of high school. And, and I understand that, so I stopped him right there. Because now, we're getting into another lesson. Because he was using his example, which often happens. They use personal example to try to explain social issues, which you can't do. So what happened is he said, well, I worked 3 jobs. I worked hard, and I made $60,000 when I came out of high school, and so I stopped him, Jackie, and I said, look, well, can you let me ask you one thing. He said, what is that? Where did you grow up? And he said, oh, well, I said, because the reason why I'm asking is because that has a lot to do with what you're telling me. It wasn't just you working hard. So I said, so where did you grow up? Now, the kid doesn't know that I'm from New Jersey and lived in North Jersey, been all through New York, kind of very familiar with the area. Oh, I grew up in Long Island. He said, I admit that I didn't grow up in areas where I had to face bullets every day. And I'm saying, well, fine. I'm not going to blame you for that. And I'm not going to say that is something wrong with you because I wish nobody had to grow up with bullets flying. But see, when we start talking about working hard, when we start trying to promote this meritocracy thing, then we have to understand that it's not as simple as working hard, young man. This is what we're trying to tell you.
Right.
So then, Jackie, me and you got down to the nitty gritty.
Got down to brass tacks with his bullshit.
Now, the nitty gritty was when the young man actually got honest. The nitty gritty was he grew up in an area where his house was worth, at that time, now mind you now, Jackie, you just said he's probably about 30 years old.
Right.
So when he got out of
40s.
Right. So when he got out of high school, which is the average age of high school, well, he said he graduated at 17. He told us that. So at 17, his house was worth $700,000.
Right, his parents' house. Right.
His parents' house was worth $700,000. 10 years ago, right? In Long Island. And I had to tell him, I said, I'm pretty familiar with the area and I'm pretty familiar where you grew up at. That is an upper middle class neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might say rich, but it's definitely upper middle class.
Right.
And so you can't say that the person that comes from the Bronx, who grew up in Co-op City, who grew up in West or East Baltimore in the projects, or come from where I come from, Camden, New Jersey, growing up there, you can't say that we all had. Well, no, my parents didn't help me.
Oh, yeah.
They wouldn't even sign a loan for me. But young man, listen to this. But had you, no, they didn't do. But had you would have failed.
Mm-hmm.
Had things didn't go out the way you planned it.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, your parents, because I'm a parent, your parents would have helped you, even if they wouldn't help you in the beginning. No one wants to see their child fail. So you trust me, that $700,000 home that and all of those things that you came from, that was available to you. That isn't available to the young man at that time, or the young woman at your time that lived in Baltimore, lived in DC, lived in the Bronx and the Queens and Brooklyn and all those other areas that you are comparing yourself to, saying that if they just did what I did,
right. And aside from, you know, the complete, like, thin veneer of bullshit to his story. Because listen, I tell the story often that when I graduated high school, I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. So I worked at Tower Records and Tower Video for like 3-4 years. And I was able to afford a 1-bedroom apartment over here in Southeast DC, because I worked at Tower Records right down on Pennsylvania Avenue. Well, it's not there anymore, but 2000 Pennsylvania Avenue, across from George Washington University. And I was able to afford 1-bedroom apartment rent and have a little bit of money left over on the weekends, you know, feed my cat, feed myself, pay rent, which was like $470 a month with utilities included, and have a little bit of money left over on the weekends to go drinking. That was in 1986.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
I know, yeah.
That was and I was making barely above minimum wage. All right. So he's talking to someone who he clearly doesn't know, has an experience that he has no frame of reference for. But okay, let's say it's true. Let's say that this bullshit that he said about graduating from high school and earning $60,000 a year, getting a job where he earned $60,000 a year, was true.
Which to me, just to add, because somebody in the chat said, I would like to know where we were looking at. The reason why we smell bullshit, Jackie, because we know that if you got a job that was working $60,000, making $60,000 a year coming out of high school, somebody helped you.
Somebody put you on. And it wasn't just somebody, it was probably family.
Exactly.
Yes, Michael, $470 for rent for a 1-bedroom apartment in 1986. Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, somebody put him on. Some family member put him on. And then, you know, he said he had these side hustles. Then he said that I was able to pay for college. College tuition back in the late 80s, early 90s was what? I was going to University of the District of Columbia, which I didn't finish from, was like $50 a credit hour. I mean, college tuition today, even from the Ivy League schools, from like state schools, is like $100,000. And
I mean, if he was, or if he is, say at max, if I give him 30, that means he was going to college around like 2009, 2010, which means college was much more expensive than it was when you and I went.
Right. So listen, aside from the obvious bullshit that this guy, and to your point about the parents' home, and yeah, okay, fine, his parents, you know, wouldn't co-sign a loan for him, and you know, all this kind of shit. Okay, fine. But just like you said, if he had failed, that $700,000 home, the equity in that home was available to him to help him.
Yeah, unless he did some fucked up shit to the family, but other than that, he had a hell of a safety net.
Okay, so that's the point I'm trying to make.
Right.
He had a safety net that was very secure, very large, aside from his completely bullshit story that just really doesn't hold up under scrutiny. But the tropes that he trotted out, about, you know, these filthy rich people deserving the filthy obscene wealth that they have, that's accumulated off of the literal physical exploitation. You got to look into the labor abuses at Amazon warehouses and really consider. I understand the contradictions are difficult. We don't like to tell people what to do, but look into the labor abuses at Amazon warehouses, and why Amazon employees are fighting for unions and in the labor struggle
which
that they are.
Tried to shit on, because he said, when we talked about unions, he said, well, the unions actually take more of your money, and we had to give him the history of what workers benefited from unionization. A lot of it has been taken away now,
right?
But I said, look, the weekend off, holidays, pensions, a lot of these things, better working conditions,
all the result of the labor struggle.
Exactly.
And look, let's be clear, and let's be
the
honest.
8-hour workday,
right? Let's be clear, though. Listen, unions are not like this panacea. There have been racial issues in unions. There have been gender issue in unions. But see, this is the thing about principled struggle, right? You enter into solidarity with working class, poor, and oppressed folks. You enter into a class struggle with folks, and you are striving toward a uniform, a singular goal. Justice and better,
right?
For working class, poor and oppressed people. And you will run into these things. But if you are clear on your ideology and your principles, then you will be able to struggle together with folks and work those things out. Not all the time, because look, there are still some issues with racism and sexism in some union organizations, because people are people. But that does not mean that the ideology, that the utility of unions in the labor struggle for working people is not useful to us now. It absolutely is. And how do we know it's useful? Look at how much effort the GOP put into destroying unions, and look at how little effort the Democratic Party is putting into supporting unions.
Exactly.
That's how you know that is how the government responds to a people-focused movement or anything that's good for the people. I feel like is how you always know how useful it is. If the government hates it, doesn't want to support it, does everything to destroy it, then it's probably good for the people, and you need to fight like hell for it.
And so, to further come to the conclusion of this story is the fact that, so then we got to the point where we had to really tell our own personal stories, because then it came to the point where not only was he talking about unions, but I also had to school the young man on apprenticeship, but we was basically schooling him on was the cost of racism, and the unions too. But he was talking about that black people, he didn't want to say it, but he wanted to say that black people have a certain mindset that wouldn't allow us to, and this is another very worn out, very worn out trope, as they say, that it's just something wrong with you guys. You guys, it's cultural. You guys don't want to take advantage of the opportunities. You don't work hard enough. You rather play basketball than study. I actually was told that one time when I was a kid that I worked for a white guy who said that. So, but and you guys, you just like to smoke weed, and while we're out here, we're studying hard and this. So, Jackie, you said something about the model minority, because he said to us, he said, I'm not white, and look at me. You know what I mean? I'm not white, look at me. So Jackie brought out the model minority, which, as smart as our audience is, you guys know where we're going with that. The Asians and everybody else who whiteness is conferred upon, directly or indirectly, But so we had to explain to him, and I had to use my own personal example, that when I came out of high school, right around the corner from me, old Black Camden, New Jersey, there was an iron union, iron workers union shop that was directly around the corner from where I live. So even though I did not intend on being an iron worker, but a friend of mine, we had just graduated, and we were just, hey, let's check it out. They had a big sign in the window saying, apprentices wanted. They were doing some infrastructure work in Camden and in the Philadelphia area. And this particular union was looking for apprentices because the money was booming. They was getting ready to paint the Ben Franklin Bridge and all that stuff. So we went around there and said, hey, let's go check this out. Biggest day, apprentices wanted, right? So we go in there and there's a very, very uptight white woman behind the counter. And, so she bristled up and we walked in and she said, can I help you? And I said, because I'm always the one to speak first. I said, well, there's a sign out there. We want to sign up for the apprenticeship program. There was silence on her part. There was silence on our part. Then all of a sudden she was like, oh, that sign there. We're not taking any more applications. I said, well, then why is the sign in the window? Oh, well, we meant to take that down. And she said, in fact, I'm going to take that down today because we already got. So this isn't the first time that I've been denied, apprentice opportunities. It was in the plumbing thing, all these other kind of stuff. I got by. But that's the thing with Black folks. We're always getting by and have to navigate around the obstacles of these racial obstacles they put in front of us. So I let the young man know about this. I said, now let me tell you something. You may not be aware of this, but do you understand that just the discrimination from the New York Fire Department against Black people in Harlem has cost the Harlem community millions of dollars of potential income that could have went into that community? Oh, no, I didn't know that. No. So no, it's not about just you working hard.
Right.
It's not about a mindset. I said all of us come out of our mothers as a blank slate. There is nobody predisposed of not wanting to take opportunities as soon as we get here. But the environmental factors, poor education, because I told them, I said, I bet you any amount of money, your schools wasn't as bad as the schools of some of them kids that schools those kids went to in the Bronx. I'm sure it wasn't as bad as some of them schools I went to in Camden, New Jersey, or down in Baltimore,
or here in DC.
So and I'm not blaming you for that. What I'm saying is that recognize the society that you're living, and see. So after a while, he started to understand that maybe he didn't know all the answers.
Maybe, especially after I had to bust his little model minority bubble. I don't know. I just kind of don't have a filter sometimes. Sometimes it's there, but I don't know. I lose it sometimes when people say dumb shit to me, like, people who grow up in neighborhoods like Baltimore, they just have a different mindset where no. We're not talking about a mindset. We're talking about an opportunity. And this is what I said to him. We're talking about a vast difference in opportunity depending on where you grew up and who you are, aside from that's opposite of the opportunities that exist where a lot of people who look like me, who look like us live. But since you brought up Baltimore, I had to, after I told him about the model minority business, because, he was offended.
Yeah.
He was so offended. But I'm not white. I'm like, yeah, but you're not Black, though.
Right. And in America, and then we had to tell them, historically, the Italians weren't white when they first got here. The Irish weren't white when they got here. But in order to keep their numbers up, then all of a sudden in the name of God, St. John and Elizabeth, you Italians are now white. Come here, Marco Polo. In the name of St. George and God, and we now confer whiteness on you. So it has nothing to do with white. It has everything to do with these that these are conferred upon you. But why we bring this up, people? All right, we bring this up because unfortunately there are the divinely melanated people like ourselves who actually believe in the gospel of Black capitalism when it comes to solving the racial wealth gap that has plagued us. Now, just off the top of my head, Jackie. Now we know, without going through, because we had some very, very bright people in the chat. Dr. Sharice is there. A lot of folks who we respect, who can really, really take rings around us when it comes to explaining these type of things. But my own humble thing, I'll just say that it has already been stated that Black people got 16 cents for every dollar that white folks have. I think I'm phrasing that right. The fact that it has already been established that it would take 228 years for black people to catch up to where white people, which makes sense because they had such a head start.
I mean, is it not ironic that it would take as long as we were enslaved for us to anyway, I'm sorry.
So this is the thing. So now that we know this, right? And nobody wants to talk about the dreaded R word, you know what I mean? So everybody wants to go around the R word. We got hit with baby bonds. We got hit with the 1340-80 plan and Clyburn plan, the 1348.
The Clown Burn plan.
All of these tailor-made, they go into the lab and be like, damn it, we got to come up with something for black people. What we going to do? Then they come out and be like, well, I got the 25-60-80 plan. Well, what the hell is that? Well, well, hold up. Oh, they ain't going to go for that. So then we go in here again and they try to mix something else up. Oh, well, I got the upside down, turn it around plan. So, but nobody wants to talk about what is really reparations. Now, this is the thing. We have a lot of black people, divinely melanated people such as ourselves, who have bought into this, what they call black capitalism. And say, well, if we just start owning our own businesses, if we just start being the head of our businesses and start forming our own this and own that, we can really close this racial. Now mine now is 228 years. So 228 years they estimate for us to catch up now. But we got our brothers and sisters who saying, oh, all we got to do is just ebony and jet our way all the way up, and we'll be all right.
We can talented 10th our way up. We can HBCU our way to some. Listen, okay, look, let's cut this shit out right now. Let's cut this shit out right now because listen, I understand that, and I think we have talked about this before, but you good people have not heard us talk about this about ourselves before. No. We believe that we were literally like put together by God, the ancestors, whomever, to do this work because. I mean, we have the same passions. We have the same. We found whatever it is that we have, and it works for us, but not because it like works for us monetarily. You know what I mean? It's because this thing where we are both angry at this system and want better for our people works for us. That's what works for us. So when we have these conversations with these kind of folks. I mean, this is like, we don't look at it as like, oh my God, not again. We're like, oh yeah, come on now. Because we got some shit for your ass. And this is what we had to make clear to this brother. And we do consider him a brother because, you're a brother until you prove otherwise, as long as you ain't a colonizer.
But he did say that he had a DNA test and he had some black ancestors.
Oh, that's right. He did.
Told us that. Yeah.
I think he was trying to back me off of him because he was like, well, I did a DNA test and I have a lot of African in me. And it's like, okay, great. I'm not going to beat you up, dude. But anyway, let's talk first about these fallacies that he put forth. This whole, he brought up, the working hard. All I have to do is work hard. First of all, I don't know anybody who works harder than our folks. Your parents, your dad. How many jobs did your dad have?
My dad, when I first started paying attention to it,
right.
My dad must have had, when him and my mother were together, my dad had like 3 or 4 jobs.
And you tell a story about a factory burning down in Camden where your dad worked.
My dad worked at a factory that was just right around the corner from us. Burnt down, and so I think that week he found another manufacturing job, but it was in 2 towns over. He didn't have a car at the time, and it was, I think, 15 miles there and 15 miles back. He would get up every morning and walk to work.
Walked home.
Yeah.
Walked to work. Walked home every day.
30 mile round trip walk.
More than one job. Now his dad had more than one job for most of his adult life.
Yes.
Right. Or at least until y'all became adults and left home. How come your dad ain't rich?
Exactly.
I mean, I know your dad. I love your dad, but he ain't rich.
Right.
So if working hard and working multiple jobs is the key to wealth, then how come his dad ain't rich? My mom worked in a diner. She was a seamstress, and she eventually got a job at the Department of Labor, where she was a GS1 for God knows how long. My mother made so little money as a GS1 that she tried to apply for food stamps, but because she worked for the federal government, they wouldn't approve her food stamps. Mm-hmm. So she had to, because she was a seamstress, she couldn't even afford fabric to sew clothes for me. So she had a friend at work who was also a seamstress who would give her fabric. My mom had 2-3 jobs. When my mom passed away, she wasn't rich. So if working hard, just working 2-3 jobs, working one job and having a side hustle and a couple of side hustles is what gets you, is what is his idea of success, how come all the people we personally know, and not just us, but y'all too, a whole lot of y'all too, a whole lot of y'all are probably working a couple of jobs. Right. How come y'all ain't rich? How come we ain't rich?
Right. And nobody worked as harder than slaves.
Look.
So I mean, so if America, if they value hard work so much, then we should have been have reparations then. If hard work is valued here.
Right.
So, but unfortunately, we have so many of our brothers and sisters who feel that we can imitate capitalists and imitate their methods and play their game without looking at the historical lessons of playing their game and how we always lost at playing their game.
Right.
But this is the thing that they're promoting. And so many of us are getting rich off of, I'm going to make millionaires out of these people. All you got to do is just register for my seminar. All you got to do, all you got to do is just, I'll be in Baltimore, and all you got to do is just see me in Baltimore, and we're going to have this get rich quick class and stuff. So, capitalism by its very nature is exploitative, right?
It is absolutely
right.
Okay. Exploitative.
Exploitative. Capitalism by its very nature fucks you. If I can
there you go. That's the proper pronunciation.
Right. And it needs people to fuck. You know what I mean? So what happens is that how is it that the same people who have always been at the messed up receiving end of the capitalist system, why would we want to perpetrate that on our own people? And so oftentimes we do it because white folks don't want to hear black capitalists. White people, I don't give a damn how poor they are. They're not going to register for your class, black capitalists. They're not going to register for your seminar, black capitalists. They're not coming to Baltimore from West Virginia just to hear you say you're going to make them a millionaire, black capitalists. So you have no choice but to rely on other black people. And this is the thing that gets me, Jackie, is the fact that the reason why you and I have made a stance against black capitalism is because what it's really saying is that, you know what? If you support black businesses, then we can close the racial gap. No, what you're saying is racial wealth gap. What you're saying is if you support black businesses, you put more money in my pocket, right? And you should put more money in my pocket because I look like you.
Because I look like you. All that is capitalist exploitation in blackface. Right. That's all it is. Now listen, I don't want people to get the idea that we're against black folks owning business.
No,
get your hustle. Get your hustle on. Get that bag. Please do.
Disclaimer.
But we always got to have
disclaimer. We're not against you making money.
We're not against you making money. Yep. Get the bag. And if you can get it from the capitalists, that's even better. Right. But
let's not pretend that this is going to be our a black capitalist tie lift all boats.
No. And on top of that, I'm going to support your business if you have something, you're selling something, some product, service that I want. I'm going to support you if you got a good product. But most businesses in this country, most small businesses don't succeed. And this was before COVID, understand. COVID changed the whole fucking game. But most businesses in this country don't succeed. They fail within the first 2 years. And that's all small businesses, black and white. Black small businesses don't even have a lot of employees. Most small black businesses don't hire a lot of people. They really are, like one person service or a product shops. There are very few that are the exception to that rule, but that is really kind of the rule.
We don't create the kind of businesses that can employ our people in the way that we need employment. So when you have, like, say, for example, you take DC, where you have a 50% black male unemployment in DC. We can't have enough barbershops and beauty supply shops, nail salons, carry out restaurants. We can't create the supply to meet that demand, the employment supply side to meet that demand, especially not in COVID. It has already, one of the things about the society, Jackie, is that white folks and the powers that be are always changing the game. When COVID happened, we was even left out. When I say we, black businesses were even left out of the COVID money.
Exactly. Aside from the government, aside from the corporations stealing the money from the small business fund in the first place, black small businesses didn't even get a whole lot of that. So I'm sorry, I'm looking at the chat of y'all are on fire over here. I'm trying to keep up, but so I'm sorry, that's not the one. Sorry about that. This is the one that had me chuckling. We can't all sell shea butter to each other. Look, I love myself some shea butter.
I do too.
We love shea butter. It's wonderful. It's fabulous. It helps this melanin. It does. But the shea butter is not going to solve the racial wealth gap there. We can't sell enough bean pies. We can't do enough hair. We can't.
Nope.
That's not how it's going to work.
And because you know why? We tried it.
We have tried.
We've had the door-to-door shea butter salespeople. We had the what was the other one that was very popular? It was some weight loss thing where people had all on their cars. We had the Amways and
my uncle did Amway.
Right. I mean, we've done those things.
I tried Mary Kay.
Right. The Mary Kay and all this other kind of stuff. But what happens is the fact that when the reason why we're stating this about why we need to get out of the fantasy of black capitalism to shorten the wealth gap. Sure, black capitalism is good if you want to come up. Black capitalism is good if we had capital to begin with. You can't have capitalism without capital, and that's the thing. And they shut us out of a lot of that capital. And so, what we're saying is the fact that when we buy into the fantasy of black capitalism, the first thing we do is let the government off the hook. The first thing we do is let the society off the hook. I know it's not popular. I know people don't want to hear it. I know politicians might not get elected and can't get elected on this, but damn it, the hell it's true. Reparations, the government owes us. Corporations who have profited off of slavery owe us, that are still around, today. They owe us. So universities. I mean, the universities owe us. And so, yes, that we got money on the table, whether they want to accept it or not. There's money left up on that table. And so the thing of it is that there has to be, because Jackie and I said when we was going to do this stream tonight, that we wasn't just going to just lament about the problems.
Right.
We have solutions, folks. And one of the solutions is that we got to get that money. That's number one. And what's going to get that money and what's going to get that is because everybody's scared of giving checks to black people. That's the whole thing.
Because, we just going to buy fried chicken and liquor. That's all
they're so scared because, it's like, well, all of these exotic ways of helping black. Oh, well, we're going to, do targeted investment. We're going to have tax incentives. We're going to have 3% this and 2% that and all this other kind of stuff. The fact means is, man, you need to just turn that faucet on and give us the money.
Because they turned the faucet on and gave the corporation $7 trillion the first 6 months of this pandemic.
Right.
I don't even know what the amount is right now. So this idea that they don't have the money and, oh my God, the Negroes are asking for too much and we can't do it, that's bullshit.
Now, the number one thing, which is my opinion, but the number one thing is, let's get out of our head about closing the wealth gap. I think number one is we need to get that out of our head. It's 228 fucking years to catch up with people who we started running from Florida, they already in Maine, right? So what I'm saying is there's not going to be any catch up or shrinking of the racial wealth gap without government intervention, because it was the government that caused this shit in the beginning. So the thing of it is the fact that we need to get that out of our minds. What we should get in our minds is creating institutions that serve our needs. That's what we should be about. we should be, and you know what? We don't even have to reinvent the wheel. Our ancestors have done that. A lot of people know about the susus. A lot of people know about macro loans and other financial ideas and practices that our ancestors and had to do because we didn't have access to the so-called mainstream financial institutions. So our families, our people came up with stuff that is still relevant today if we use it. You know, if we understand that the white man's ice ain't actually colder than ours. But why should we get into this mindset of where we constantly knocking on somebody's door who don't want to let us in, and when they do let us in, they make us pay more for everything else? So the first thing, in my opinion, is that we should first of all get out of our heads of closing the racial wealth gap, because we can't do it on our own.
And let me show you why, and let me hope. I hope this works. Hey, look at that, it works. All right. So this is why we cannot close the racial wealth gap on our own through hard work, through getting a college education, through owning a business. This is posted in Visual Capitalist. And I know the title is really fucked up, but this is a great graph. I think this is a great graph. This is income in 2016 dollars and net worth 2016 dollars. Look at this. Look at this. This is just not one statistic. It's two. It's the mean and the median. The mean is the average, I think, right? And the median is the midpoint of so this number, this $123.4 thousand that the average white person has in this country in income, right? That's the average. But the median, the midpoint, the income of the white people who are smack in the middle of the scale of the wealthiest white people and the poorest white people, $61.2 thousand. And thank you, Dr. CBS. She said they're both averages. Okay. See, I sucked at math in high school.
I did too.
So, all right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let me put this up here to get this right, because I don't want to get this information wrong. This is why we can't fuck up with this stupid,
that's right.
We need to close the wealth gap. It's not, we cannot do anything to close this gap that wasn't created by us, and that the government continues to perpetuate with both policies that they continue to enact, and by ignoring other policies that they just, that they just don't enforce. So, but look at the mean and the median of Black income. This is just income in this first box. This is just how much money we make at the work we do. All right. Compared to, I hate that they use Hispanic, but okay. Latinx people, just a little bit above us in income, and then other. Now, other is really tricky because other could include anything and everybody that's not these three groups of people. So if they broke that out into Pacific Islanders, if they broke that out into indigenous people,
or our Persian friend,
if they broke that out into Native Alaskans, that would look, I think, different. But you get the point. Y'all get the point, right? Then that's just income, all right? But let's go over here to net worth. Look at this.
Yeah, that's sad.
You mean to tell me we're gonna work our way? We're gonna have our main job and side hustle our way? Have 2-3 side hustle our ways to catching up to this?
No.
Look. The net worth of Black people is so small they can't even put the number inside the little green circle.
Come on now, look at that. Look at that.
Oh, okay. Let me scroll down, because they do go into pretty in-depth detail about the different types of wealth and asset, percentage of families with asset type. Oh, people are, there are always all these policies about pushing home ownership among Black people. Okay, well, primary residence for white people, 73% of white people. they have their asset is their primary residence. 45% of Black people, their asset is their primary residence. Look at this number. This color is the difference from white households. Now, why is this important? Why is this important?
And I just want to inject because this has been, I believe, because someone referenced Dr. Ball's with the Black Buying Power. Please get that book and read it if you haven't already.
If you don't get Dr. Ball's book, don't be coming on this stream making comments till you get that book and read that joint. It's great. So why is the housing thing so important? And the focus on getting Black people to buy more houses to close the racial wealth gap, such a ridiculous prospect because of the racial discrimination in the housing market.
Right.
Even Black people who live in the so-called upper class neighborhoods, their homes are devalued compared to comparable homes in white neighborhoods where there are no Black people. Thank you. The book is free. I keep saying buying it because I'm talking about all this money. It's free. You can get it for free. So now there really is no reason for you not to download the Myth of Black Buying Power. But you know what you can do with the money that you would have spent on the book? You can become a supporter of Black Power Media. That's what you can do. There you go. So the racial discrimination in the housing market makes it so that Black people who even have high incomes, who live in so-called upper class exclusive neighborhoods, Atlanta is a great example of that. So is Washington, D.C. Their homes are devalued compared to comparable homes with white people who have the same income in comparable neighborhoods solely because they're Black.
That's right.
So getting Black people to buy homes is not going to close the racial wealth gap when the people who determine the value of the home and the land decide that the home is worth less because the bodies living in it are Black. All right. So there you go. There's that. This goes on and on to talk about retirement accounts and family-owned business entity. And here, here's the thing that's crazy to me about this whole owning Black businesses stuff.
Right.
Only 15% of white people in this country are involved in family-owned businesses. And you see the gap in wealth between white people and Black people. So if only 15% of white people in this country gain their wealth from family-owned businesses, why do Black people believe that Black people owning businesses will close the... Am I losing my mind?
No, I mean, but this is what's not explained when someone says, come to Baltimore and I will show you how to gather wealth, or come to there, or all you got to do is see, this is the information which you're only going to get on Black Power Media. Shout out. But this is the information you're going to get here. This is it. You get the gloss and you get all this stuff about, of capitalism. But when you start to take the sheets and the bed covers off and get down to the mattress, that's what you get. You
said sheets, because I immediately thought of Klan, because that's what this is like, some Klan propaganda shit right here. This is the last little piece of this, and this is really important because you got Black folks talking about, you can invest in the stock market. If you didn't buy, if you spent that money that you... I laugh every time I think of this. If you spent that money that all of you spend on Starbucks every week, and invested in the stock market, okay, listen to me.
All you got to do is just remember Bodie from The Wire. What did Bodie say?
What did he say?
Bodie said, man, the game is rigged.
Look here. 61,
even Bodie knew that. Bodie said the game is rigged.
He knew that. 61% of white people own publicly traded stock. Now that's pretty significant. What you need to understand about the stock market is that 80% of the value of the stock market is already in the possession of 10% of the population. So what's left of the stocks that are being traded, it's not a whole lot. 31% of Black people own publicly traded stock. That's the difference between the white people who own stock and the Black people who own stock. This is Latinx people and everyone else. So these folks.
So we're not going to capitalize our way. We're not going to ride the escalator of black capitalism to economic freedom, economic sustainability. We're not. We can't leave out that it's going to take government intervention. Now, until that day comes, right? There are some things we can do.
Yes.
And
what are some of those things?
Well, I already talked about it. We will have to, and it's going to take risk on our part because we've been socialized not to trust each other. We've been socialized not to cooperate with each other when it comes to these type of things. But we're going to have to take that risk. And one of the things that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to develop co-ops, and we're going to have to develop organizations that will act in buying up these. We can own Baltimore, we can own Cleveland. Look, I sat on a committee, and I told you about this, where they were looking for somebody to buy East Cleveland.
the whole
East Cleveland.
Whole of East
I was
Cleveland.
part of an organization, a black organization that unfortunately weren't serious, but they were looking for an enclave that that you see setting up like a black settlement or something, and the mayor of Cleveland, who was black, he said, y'all can come and buy East Cleveland. We want somebody to buy it. We don't have no tax base. Please take this off our hands, right? And I mean they, but unfortunately, we got to get past the form of talking about doing these things, and we have to start understanding that these things are going to take risks from us. We're going to have to learn to trust each other. We're going to have to learn to start taking that next step and not just get bogged down in rhetoric and not just get bogged down to idolism and all this stuff. We are going, because now East Cleveland is gentrified. So look at Detroit. We could have owned most of Detroit before the white folks got in there and gentrified it. We could have done the same thing down in a lot of these areas, even though that the financial institution, the white financial institution, was holding us out. We could have had alternative sources of revenue, right?
Or collective, any collective action.
But that's what I mean. But see, because of the socialization that we went through in this country of not trusting each other when it comes to finances, and we have good reason for that. Let me not just beat up on us all the time, because Muammar Gaddafi gave Louis Farrakhan $5 million to start these power products, and I know a lot of y'all know about that, but I'm not going to say. And I'm not going to say about the 3 million man marches that we had that nobody can account for where the money went.
You just say it and then talk about you not going to say.
I'm not going to say, but we had 3 million man marches where money was collected. But that's above my pay grade. But what I will say is we got reason for that. But we're going to have to step out on faith, right? And we're going to have to start understanding that we're going to have to get we got everything that black people need to succeed in this country. We got scholarship. We got people who can build. We got people who understand the numbers. We got people who can do all kinds of stuff. We don't really need anybody. The fact of it is just being able to come together and bring that talent, that pool of talent together and say, look, we going to West Baltimore, and all of them houses on Pennsylvania Avenue that's all boarded up and stuff, we're going to find out who owned that. We're going to buy that block, and then our educators are going to set up a trade school that's going to teach our young people how to rehab these houses so that they can be moved in by black working class people. So our kids get a skill, our young people, our young men and women get skills on how to build. We get skills on how, and we build these houses up. We have a type of mortgage program that suits us, not what the white capitalists tell us that they require. No, we put systems in place that works for us. That's what I'm talking about. We can do this. We can get this stuff together. We can own the block. We can own East Cleveland when it was available and all this other kind of stuff. We can do this, but we have to start taking risks, my people.
And really, this is what you're saying that we have to do requires organization. It requires being in organization that puts forth those ideas, and you can't even conceive of the ability to do that. I mean, people, think of that. They always think that, you have to play the game by the capitalist rules. Well, what if we stop measuring our idea of success by the capitalist rules? What if we stop doing that? And I feel like being in an organization, being around people who have a serious historical understanding of the way this capitalist system has propagandized us, has exploited us, has stolen from us, has lied to us, cheated us, and continues to try to convince us that it is their way or the highway, and we can't succeed unless we do it their way. We have got to break from that. And one of the ways we break from that, again, is being in organization with people who understand that and who can explain to you why all of that is bullshit. It's not for us. And eventually, hopefully, we get to understanding that communalism and socialism is where we need to be headed.
Exactly.
It's going to take baby steps. But we really believe that what we're doing here, what Black Power Media is doing, what everybody on this channel and people we're connected with behind the scenes are doing, even in our regular day job on By Any Means Necessary and on our channel, it's that they are baby steps we have to take to get us to that point. So I put Dr. Jared Ball's book, excuse me, here, so you can see where to download it, not buy it. Don't buy it. You download it and understand why these myths about Black buying power have been so harmful to us, where they come from, and how to combat this ridiculous capitalist ideology. We're in this capitalist system. We have to use money to survive. But we don't have to play the game the way the capitalists do. We don't have to play by their rules in order to be successful. We really do have to have a complete change in the way we think, in the way we see ourselves, and in, I think Ricky said, our habits of consumption, the media we consume, down to the very kind of media we consume.
And that's why we're really grateful for Black Power Media, because this is what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to give, bring to our folks, man, what has been missing all this time. So anyway, baby, take us home, because I'm getting hungry.
Yes, he's getting hungry. I'm getting hungry, and we don't want to get in the way of our friend and comrade, Dr. Sharice Burden-Stelly, Dr. CBS, who you should stick around and check out at 7 p.m. I want to share this last article with you wait. Okay, I need to actually click on the article. There we go. And hopefully you'll really get, I think this drives the point home.
I think so, yeah.
We've never had a purely capitalist economy. We've had state subsidies for some and exclusion for others. Dr. CBS mentioned this before, where, companies are heavily subsidized by the government, but the people are clearly not. And that's by design.
Yes.
That is by design. These people are telling us that capitalism is great, and they're really not living by their own capitalist principles, because they're living on corporate welfare.
Yeah, it's just like they tell us that it's big government when government does something for the people, but but they rely on the government as for tax breaks and all kind of other goodies and stuff. It ain't big government then.
Right, but we always want handouts. Right. We're like, hey, how come I pay my utilities and the lights ain't on when a storm come? How come I pay my water bill and I can't get any water when a storm come? How come? Yeah, anyway, so this is on a publication called Pro Market, the publication of the Stigler Center at the University of Chicago, Booth Studies of Business. We've never had a purely capitalist economy. We've had state subsidies for some and exclusion for others. Hope you check that out. And yeah, we really hope that you enjoyed this our first live stream here in Black Power Media. We hope you learned something.
Yes.
We hope that you continue to support Black Power Media. If you have not joined, join. If you have not contributed, please contribute. If you haven't shared, share. all of the content here as much as you can. And we really, really appreciate the time you spent with us tonight.
Right. And please let others know about Black Power Media.
Please.
When you're around, share these videos, share the streams, and look, man, a lot of the word of mouth, man. Don't never underestimate the word of mouth type thing.
Never.
So you know what you're getting here. Let's do this, man. We have a nation to build.
Speaking of nation, you can follow Lukman Nation on patreon.com/Lukman Nation, LUQMANNATION. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can like us on Facebook. You can do the same with Black Power Media, and you should. So with that, y'all, we thank you very, very much. We appreciate y'all. As the eternal chairman, Fred Hampton, said, peace if you are willing to fight for it, and you better be, because you got to.
See Dr. CBS next. Stay tuned. Peace.
I had them all down before I dial up. How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. I had them all down before I dial up. How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. I know the wall's closing in, but don't you dare give up now. Poe believed in me, pull up through some bucks down. Tied till the valet pull the truck round. Push the line after we drew it, it's just us now. Would you believe me if I told you my granny told me she prayed this? Then booked the surgery just to pull me out of the basement. Right back where I started, nothing to show for a facelift. Got pushed playing Walter White and Davis, never felt so dangerous. The type of power they can't quantify. And name the best from my region, you gotta utter mine. Think of who really putting on, you never come to mind. Rapping like your Spotify, tap you rappers compromise. Yeah, no need to panic, just paint the canvas.